one more game to go tonight, and it's a big one. It is FaZe versus Santos. Both teams that are heavy hitters, and it's going to be an exciting one to watch. Of course, I'm joined once again by Gio and Ollie for this matchup. They're going to be taking you through all of the action. FaZe versus Santos. I've got to ask off the bat, Ollie, how are we feeling about their performances last week?
Ooh, I mean, week of two halves for FaZe. That's probably a fair assessment of their performance last week. They were able to get that win over MIBR, but they struggled against Team Liquid. It was a 7-2 to Liquid. We kind of hoped for a little bit more out of that matchup. Inside of this week, though, against Santos, you have to give the advantage firmly over toward FaZe. It's borderline top versus bottom.
It's a rough way to put it, but I think it's true. When you take a look over at the standings and everything, it is definitely reflected. But when it gets to this point, when we're in stage 2, Gio, how much are we expecting these bottom, middle of the pack teams to start surprising us? Because they've had plenty of time to analyze the top tier teams. Now is the time where if they don't make changes, they're going to be in a bad spot for the rest of the year.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they've been analyzing the top teams, and even though Santos are still very much near the bottom of the table, we've seen already improvements in the way that they play, and that's great. They've added a lot more dimension to the way they play. They're taking vertical control a lot more seriously. The big problem for Santos at the moment is how slow they're playing, and I don't think it's a case of them not recognizing that that is a problem, or not knowing that they have to do better on that if they are to take on these top teams, but of course it always takes some time to implement, and I think that's probably the phase that is more fair to say that Santos and any of the other bottom 4 teams are in right now.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We have had a long stage coming up to stage 2 where these teams have battled it out before. Let's take a quick look at this video to explain how we got here and what to expect from these two squads.
One win, one defeat. This summarizes last weekend for these two teams. FaZe Clan did well against MIBR, however, they were not able to repeat their winning strategy against Team Liquid. On the other side, Santos began with a loss to the Black Dragons, but were able to recover against
escudo pela frente, ele vai contornando, chegou no prefire pra tentar, o Destiny leva e o Condes fecha!
Everything may seem equal until we turn the page of history. There's another element to be taken into consideration, the supremacy displayed in the first match between these teams in Stage 1, when Rise and his companions were massacred, 7-2.
Será que tem mundo em que o Condes consegue esse clutch? Vamos ver agora, não acontece!
Confronto com a FaZe, a gente perdeu ali no map ban e a gente tentou fazer um risco, que era picar vila, e era pra ser uma partida 8-80. Infelizmente deu 8.
Bom, o confronto contra o Santos foi um confronto até que não tão difícil no primeiro turno. Mas a gente sabe que eles vêm mudando aí, os times vêm evoluindo e a gente tem que ficar bem atento a isso.
FaZe has a challenge that it hasn't had in a long time, returning to leadership of the league. After the last stage, Cameraman and company were overcome by Liquid and certainly do not want their rival to increase their lead. For Santos, their goal is to get any point that exists, regardless of the opponent's standing.
O jogo de hoje contra o Santos, eu espero que a gente tenha a cabeça que a gente tava no dia, manter o foco aí e não bobear que eles aproveitam as brechas.
Nossa partida hoje com a FaZe, eu acho que a gente vai vir bem melhor do que antes, que a gente tá com esse map pool bem maior. Eu acho que se a gente puxar ali a partida round a round, eu acho que a gente consegue sair com a vitória.
The distance in our standings may be significant, but what separates each team from victory today is just one map. Will Santos manage to compromise Team Liquid's plans? Will Liquid manage to remain kings of the hill going forward? Find out in this next match between FaZe Clan and Santos Esports.
So we heard in the video there, Santos plan on just playing it round by round, making adjustments on the fly. Ollie, I think that's the best way you can play when you're a team like Santos up against like a strong roster such as FaZe.
Yeah, you know, you've not really got any sort of, easy way about this. This is not going to be an easy game for Santos. We can't sit here and sell it as anything other than that. So for me, yep, 1 round at a time, try and deal with that aggression and that unpredictability that FaZe bring. See if that is going to be enough.
Gio, we did have a bit of a surprise last game in the fact that we saw Nip almost end up losing it. Are we expecting to see the same here?
I don't think so, but when you do look at the scorelines that FaZe have had, you would say that it's less than you would have expected from them. A 7-5 on Playday 1 and then a 2-7 on Playday 2. So there certainly is that possibility that Santos could chip away at them.
Well, we'll have to see. In we go to the map veto, though, and we'll see exactly where we're going to be ending up. You could tell that in the video, Santos mentioned that they gave FaZe too much flexibility with the map veto last time. They didn't end up on the map that they were maybe looking for. Ollie, if you had to think, what maps do you see teams like Santos kind of shining on in this pool right now?
I would avoid an aggressive map. I think that could be something that you would come undone quite quickly on. I'd probably avoid Villa as well. FaZe are pretty good over on that map. For me, you're probably going to want to go for something like an Oregon, something like maybe even a Kafe Dostoevsky, something along that line.
A what, Ollie?
I couldn't say it.
A Kafe
like,
what?
Brain fart. Couldn't say it. Maybe a Kafe. I'm really tired at this point. Like, you can see the bags on my eyes. I'm being powered through this cast. But for me, something like that would be great. Not quite checklist. Not quite all of the, you know, your sort of clubhouses and all that sort of stuff. Something that sits in between.
Yeah, I guess we're going to find out soon enough. Gio, predictions, what are we thinking that Santos or FaZe are going to be trying to fight for? Do you think we're going to be ending up where they're both looking for similar maps? Or is it a case of Santos, they want something slow and procedural, whereas FaZe maybe wants something a lot more fraggy, something where they can go out and just play super aggressive?
I think FaZe will probably feel comfortable on most maps. In themselves, whether or not that reflects on how well they do on them is something else. FaZe are very good at being aggressive, though, and I think especially given the slowness of a lot of Santos's attacks lately, it wouldn't be smart to take them somewhere aggressive, no.
No, let's take a look over at those map vetoes, though, and see exactly where we're going to end up. Now, Ollie, I'm going to have to ask you to explain here, man. If we're looking for a bit more of an aggressive map for FaZe, what maps are we looking at ending up on?
Well, FaZe would, maybe if they were looking for an aggressive map, they'd want a coastline, something of that nature. It all depends on how they want to try and play it. Initially, we're seeing them ban Club and Consulate. So Consulate could sort of fall into a map you could play aggressively. FaZe actually ban out the coastlines. So they're the ones that are maybe wanting a little bit more structure. Yeah, a bit of a... I guess that's where we land, isn't it? We land on Kafe because neither team want full structure. Neither team want full sort of chaos and gunfights.
It seems like a nice middle ground here between, you know, the chaos and the structure. The question is, which team's going to come out on top? Of course, you've got to feel like they've drilled maps like Kafe so heavily. They should be prepared for it. Gio, are we going to see Santos come out of the gate swinging, try and get aggressive early and try and open things up? Or are they going to play that reserved play style and just try and take it round by round?
I don't think Santos play reserved. I don't think that's what it is at all. I think they certainly want to try and be assertive. It's just that they are held back by, I don't know, whether it's confidence or their own communications, whatever it is. Their approach isn't as fast as it should be. The times where they manage to get plants down, there's only ever a few seconds left on the clock, and most attempts at attacking, they don't get a plant down at all because they just run out of time. So they're going to have to try because FaZe aren't going to let up, but we'll see how it goes.
We will certainly see indeed as game number 4 of the evening, our final match, is now underway. Ollie, Gio, take it away.
Thank you very much, Chunks. We are going to be headed into Santos versus FaZe Clan as our 4th game here of the night. Gio, 4 games, 4 Thatcher bans.
Yeah, I'm mad.
Are you done?
I'm angry.
Hey,
that's more interesting.
See, this is wild, right? And we maybe need to touch on this. It's not that we want the new operator banned. Like, we want neither of these things. We don't want Thatcher Band and we don't want the new Operator Band. We just want different. That's the main thing
variety.
Here. We want
it's
variety.
The spice of life.
So it might seem a little bit strange us saying like, yes, Flores is being banned, but that shows that these two teams don't want to deal with that. They don't want to, you know, because you think about all the power positions on this map that you can use the drones in, the Flores drones. There are so many. So it kind of makes that bit a little bit more interesting. It also brings a different attacker available. So it means that we've got Maverick, Hibana. We've got everything else available here, aside from, obviously, the Thatcher and the Flores. So it just frees things up a little bit. A mirror and a clash, it's kind of here and there. You know, you would expect a mirror ban. A clash ban maybe is a little bit of a weird one.
I think it's more of a target because Santos have been that team who are very happy to bring out clash, especially on defensive rounds where they kind of want to throw something into the mix. They're not too bad at clash. The problem that they had with clash last stage is that they would look really good on her, but then it would kind of get stale quickly and it would be read into. But you can see, if you are looking to take just a couple of rounds, if that's all the game is, then Santos bringing out a clash would potentially be able to switch the way the momentum is going. And I think FaZe kind of don't want to deal with that.
Makes a lot of sense. They're a team that have, as you say, sort of crutched onto that, and it's, I think Cons has been one of the main players, but any one of them will pick the clash up on occasion. So FaZe starting off here on the defense. Santos starting things off on the attack. Arguably the more difficult side here on Kafe, but with a kind of strange choice for the first pick, Gio, Reading Room. It's not sort of down there in the dregs of the sites on this map, because there aren't really any dregs. All the sites are good. Teams tending to favor either the bakery or that Reading Room. Oh, you hate to see it. Round one, set the precedent, set the tone. Destiny, it's going to be another 3 minutes. It's horrendous.
It is funny though, a little bit. Yeah, what you were saying about reading not necessarily being the primary site. I think for a while, in other regions, especially if we look somewhere like Europe, it did become that because R was being read into a bit too much. The same for some teams with Kitchen, but there were a lot of teams who did decide to go down to Kitchen for their primary. But then reading just became more and more popular. And actually, FaZe Clan did hover over going to Bar at the start and switched it right at the last second. And of course, they're already looking stronger because of that early pick, the spawn peak onto Destiny. And naturally, because you're not bringing something like an Ashe as well, that's a lot of soft breach utility that's now been lost to the ether that you can't really replace.
Santos can't afford to be fighting these rounds at a 4 versus 5, especially trying to get entrance and attack in to Kafe. You need as many eyes, as many drones as you've got to try and effectively clear out this top floor, of which not a lot has been done just yet. Hunter's got himself into the top of red stairs. We've seen a bit of a trend of teams just pushing a little bit too flat. Cons, he had no idea that Bullet was playing on the Pixel.
That's a very strange place to not know someone's playing. Not just because you should have drone, but because it's Kafe Dostoevsky. You know what I mean? Like, there's always someone playing there. And now they're trying to get rid of him. Finally, finally a nade gets thrown in to try and remove the shield, but the ADS caught it. Hunter catches Bullet, just because he decided to push on forwards, which was a bit unnecessary. But still, that was a real kerfuffle that I don't think was necessary.
Bit of a kerfuffle, a lot of nades used in the process. It all sort of slows down this attacking push. SDK, he's going to be getting himself in from the bottom of White Stairs, but he's got Cameraman with a shotgun at almost point-blank range. Oh, Cameraman goes for the peek, and he almost looked too deep. He will eventually redeem himself, shuts him down. Low health or not, he will be there to fight. Rise, he aggresses on through and kind of instantly gets himself shut down. Hunter, he has the diffuser. He has intel. He's got 20 seconds. Can he find the first? Only getting peaked at 1 at once at the moment, as FaZe have sort of decided to just let this round play out in the course of time. Souls many times have we seen Souls be that dangerous support player? One of the last alive, I mean, there were 4 alive there for FaZe, but still. Round 1 going as expected.
Yeah, that was not a great round for Santos, and I think they were definitely sort of thrown into a flurry when they lost Destiny so early. It was like a similar thing that we spoke about last week when there was a team that lost their Hibana basically immediately, and it was like, well, what are you going to do? But when you lose someone that early, if that's going to throw you that much, A, that's a really big flaw that you should probably patch up. But secondly, it just seemed a lot like Santos didn't entirely know what their approach was going to be. They tried to come in through the top floor. They did so very overzealously at first, and they lost a player for it. Then they kind of panic and try and take Bullet down. And sure, Bullet ended up walking forwards and straight into the gunfire, which was not the best decision, in my opinion. And then they choose, actually, no, we don't want to be up here. We want to go downstairs. And part of that may have been because if they had made it over to Cocktail and if they'd opened up the floor and if they'd been able to push down White Stairs, because they were so lacking in manpower by that point already, that would have been quite hard. So maybe they saw it as a kind of making up for their losses. And they were going to go downstairs and try and push laterally that way. But the point is, it was just like a new decision was being made every few tens of seconds. Astro not quite getting the spawn peak this time, but he certainly wasn't far off.
It's always something that's going to be in the back of the players' minds for Santos, though, now is that threat of the spawn peak. Is it coming this round? Is it coming next? You know, where do you really stand with it? It's a horrible position to be in, and it can add, you know, 5-10 seconds onto your getting up into the map or getting onto the rappel. There's so much time of this map as an attacker is spent getting to this roof, and it isn't something that you can do for free. And on the way there's very little that you can do. You can check the windows, you can destroy a default camera, but ultimately you are spending a lot of your time on Kafe just getting into a position to essentially start. That's the position that we do find Santos in now, as they can start to get this drone work underway.
Yeah, Kafe's an interesting one. Oh, nice kill. Okay, goodbye Cons, and Destiny's going to be joining him in the grave too. So Santos, once again, significantly weak and haven't even made it into the map yet. What I was going to say is Kafe's an interesting one because other than the roof hatches, if you want to go into one of the upstairs floors, there isn't actually another way to do it. I mean, I suppose you can walk straight in next to Reading Room, but as for the very top floor, there's not another way to do it. You think of something like Consulate, you can go in through the balcony. Something like Clubhouse, that also has balconies on the top floor. Kafe doesn't. So you have to take the hatches or the windows, and it can mean that it takes a significant chunk of time to actually set up what's below you and drone out the surrounding areas to even make the decision to commit to that drop.
Well, Cyber is going to get himself dropped back into sight. Bullet getting a bit overzealous on the window. This time will be punished by Rise. That consistent flank watch for Santos. We always see him on the Nomad. Ensure that those flanks are safe, or as safe as they can be. 45 seconds to really make something happen. A fluffed nade there by Hunter. You're just going to have to face check away. 2 nades still in the hands of STK to try and make something happen with. But with the hatch being watched, going to make it semi-difficult for anybody to push in that direction. STK, have they got any information at all? He's just lobbed a nade up red stairs. There's still shields in the site that need dealing with. Souls is just going to pop up from behind one of them. STK, I bet you wish you had the nade. Now he eats a nearly entire C4. He's left on 1 health. Astro, line him up and he will knock them down. Gets himself a couple of easy kills there. Just pushing in through from Bakery. FaZe not really looking too pushed there.
We're 2 rounds in and Santos do look a bit lost, don't they? It was the incredulity in your voice when you said he just lobbed a nade up the red stairs there. And I was thinking the same thing as you. We're staring directly at a shield.
Yep.
That is in the line of sight of an open doorway. You have players who are looking that way. There is someone behind it. I wonder how to clear out that person behind the shield. Maybe getting rid of the shield will help. Do we have any utility to get rid of the shield? Ooh, what about nades? You know, I understand. I'm being very arsy about it, but I understand that maybe they had some information or something. Something made them feel like their best bet was to throw a projectile up the stairs. Maybe it was fear. In my opinion, what would have been better is use the nade for its intended purpose. And if you think someone's flanking you, put someone on red stairs.
I think Rise was still alive at that point. It'd be around to go back. And, like, don't get us wrong. You know, we know that Siege is, even at the highest level, isn't played entirely perfectly. And we will speculate on things for a long period of time when, in reality, all that happened was a nade got thrown. But these are the small things that add up to bigger things. So it's always nice to go back in that situation and go like, did Rise have any air jobs left? You know, who was where? Was there actually somebody playing upstairs? And we can do that sort of stuff with obviously the match replay tool and go through and see. Because to us, it's an interesting decision, and we're not calling the decision out. We just want to know why it was made, right? Because there's a reason that the player's done that. And if it's a reason like, I didn't really know what to do with it, so I just did that, it's like, yeah, cool, that's fine. That is your reason. But if it was, well, we wanted to mask the sound because we needed to do X, Y, then that's also a valid reason. So, because I feel like I was a little bit like, he's just thrown the nade up red stairs, like, what the hell's going on? And obviously, like, it is difficult at that point to really sort of figure out what's going through that player's mind because they are in a very pressured situation.
Yep. And you can't let the pressure get to you. I know that it's pressurizing to have a team like FaZe Clan as your opponent. I would feel the same way as well, but I'm also, like, peak plat 3, so it would be a bit different for me, I guess. But the point is you just can't let the pressure get to you like that. You will start to crumble and buckle at the knees. Now, Santos are getting very prepared on these windows, and I'm interested to see how this is going to go, if they can clear this space out. Bullet knows the position of one of these players, but is he aware that there's two of them? He gets stunned and decides to go prone to reload, and actually Astro comes in to get a kill.
Oh, what timing on that ADS. If that nade had exploded a split second before traveling just far enough to get inside of that ADS, it maybe would have seen a little bit of success, but Astro can count his lucky stars along with Bullet. They have been able to stay alive there. Drones can now go out, and Santos, they've just got so many puzzles to solve here. We've not only got the laser gates, but we've also got castle barricades. We've also got a smoke. There is so much time waste on this side that FaZe are bringing. It really is no wonder that we're seeing Santos sort of stall out and struggle in this mid to late round when they do lose things like a lot of that soft destruction that you can deploy from range, because it is going to make it very difficult to get on in and to do all too much. Now, there's only so long you can hold the angle for on repel before you've got to try and attempt to peek on through. That ADS has regenerated. Astro playing beautifully patient here. He actually has a rotation. How has Cyber been able to find that kill onto comms? That's not only a big frag, but it is the diffuser as well. With only 20 seconds left, you don't really want to be going out of your way to pick that guy up. Hunter, he's going to be on the skylight. Now, typically we've seen him hold plants from there, but this time he doesn't have that luxury. He has to try and get himself on through, and while players are still looking to challenge on windows, it's going to be a very short, sharp end as kills start to come on through. Cyber, he finds Rise. The other two players do remain alive, but time will win it out for FaZe.
That was not one for the highlight reel, don't think. And, I mean, you astutely put it when you said they were just stalling out. Santos really struggled to move forward, and they didn't even get close enough to the Aruni gates and to the castle barricades for it to be that. You know, they were already stumped at the windows. The ADS thing that you mentioned, that was probably more relevant to preventing Santos from moving forward. The fact that Astro was so ready to come in and support Bullet when there were two players on the windows who were specifically trying to target Bullet. Not only did Bullet get away with his life in his own right, but Astro then got the kill onto the players from Santos who were trying to kill Bullet. So they failed to get the kill that they wanted, even after stunning him out. They failed to get a successful nade, because there were ADSs and we'd clear out. And then they died in the process too. I I don't think they were even in the vicinity of the Surya gates or the castle barricades for those to even matter at that point.
Well, it could be a short NGO, depending on how this game plays out. Santos are going to have to... I want to use the words do something. Because we just kind of didn't really see them do all too much in that previous round. There were attempts made, but... You know, at the time where there's, you know, the clock's ticking and we've still got players out on the rappel and they're not even attempting to get themselves in, you've got to wonder, like, yeah, your plan hasn't gone well, but we still need something out of the attack. There's still a chance. You know, there's every chance inside a siege. You need a bullet. That's it. One bullet could be one kill. That's all you might need.
FaZe Clan have a bullet.
FaZe Clan do have a bullet.
He's on Jaeger right now.
They also have a lot of kills, Gio.
Yeah.
And 3 rounds.
Yeah, they got 13 kills. Just counted. Crazy
that's really
and
impressive.
nutty. Thanks. Yeah, and so Santos are going to be coming in to try and attack onto Reading once again. This was a site that back on round number 1, they really struggled with. They got spawn peaked. They were already at a huge man disadvantage very early on. So they decided to give up on the attempt at an upstairs take because they couldn't really deal with Bullet and his utility up on Pixel. Decided to try and come in for a more lateral take, very close to where these FaZe players are standing right now here in mining. So you know that FaZe are just so ready for any of these options that Santos could take. Now, does the shield actually get destroyed by the lifeline? Because that was the whole aim of using the lifeline. There's a nice Evil Eye as well. I mean, this is a very classic spot to put an Evil Eye, but you just get such a broad scope of information, including anyone who may be passing in through Cigar.
Shots now being exchanged. Astro gonna take a little bit of damage there as STK will be the first to fall. Cameraman lands a C4. Destiny and Hunter trying to push their way on through. The site is going to be Reading as FaZe have already done a clean sweep of this map. At least their 3 sites, their chosen 3, and they've gone back to their first round choice. Kind of strange not to see upstairs being pressured as heavily, but we have seen teams attempt this very flat take, and Santos is one of those teams. Don't forget, we saw them play Kafe last week, and it was a 6-8, so it did go to overtime, but it was a short overtime. They weren't able to get the win over Black Dragons, and it did show us some good things. One of the criticisms that we had was that they weren't working in the same direction. They weren't all doing what needed to be done, but we can see that coordination coming here from them now, and it's assisting them in being able to get some jobs done, but they're still not able to win out on these gunfights. Bullet eventually will fall, but Cameraman has picked up 2 kills inside of the round, make it 3. Finds another in Rise, able now to make the rotation. Con's the last alive. Cyber picking up the pieces. 4 rounds for FaZe.
Oh, yeah. It's a very strange game. Probably a very strange game for FaZe as well, because they don't really have to show that much. It's not like they've got to go out of their way to give away strategies or anything like that. And it's very interesting to me thinking back to the pregame when we were talking about how Santos felt like they had given FaZe a lot more leniency in the map veto back in stage 1 when they ended up playing on Villa. It was a 7-2 victory to FaZe Clan. Now, Santos evidently came into this game wanting to be a bit tougher on the map veto. We've also already seen Santos play on Kafe Dostoyevsky in this stage. So we know that it's a map that they feel comfortable playing on, that they've worked on, and that they would like to play. And yet it seems to be going pretty awfully for them right now.
That's certainly one way of putting it. Santos are struggling in that coordination department, struggling in that kills department. Really just coming up against a FaZe that, let's be honest, they're not playing aggressively. We see FaZe and we sometimes question that play style, and I think it was something that I said last week was that FaZe are sometimes that remaining team inside of BR6 that have that old LATAM flair, that raw aggression, where it's very untempered when it's on. And they can turn it on, they can turn it off, and in this game it seems like they've turned it off, which is interesting because it's a game that is going very well for them. But we see them just go and be wild some days, and it works, and some days it doesn't. And they're still developing that sort of strategical side of things, whereas today they're just playing good Siege, and they're coming up against a little bit of aggression here and now. Astro, he's going to be ready for it. In fact, he's ready for 2. He's able to take both Destiny and Cons out of the picture. 2 players are going to be down. SDK finishes off Souls. Essentially, 3 versus 3 now as Rise has been revived and finds himself a nice frag. Site control now firmly in the hands of Santos, and they've really just said, you know what, we don't want to go down without a fight. We're going to attempt a bit of a rush and see if it pays off. So far, they have the plant down, but they are in a man deficit. Bullet has still not been able to push his way back on into site. It's a full retake here for FaZe. 1C4 in the hands of Cyber to try and make the job a little bit easier as he makes his way through prep. Astro, he's found 3 kills inside of this round. Cyber picks up the last. Only a time to disable that kit. Even a rush was not enough.
You know, when Astro got those 2 kills and I said, what was that? It was because I was so taken aback by it. You know, I did not expect Santos to just decide to walk straight into the site. In fact, one of the things that I was thinking of bringing up was the fact that because FaZe Clan had opted to go for a bandit, that was going to put a lot of pressure on Santos because it would have required them to play vertically to remove the bandit batteries. And FaZe Clan likely would have set up players upstairs to ensure that Santos couldn't even get in those positions in the first place. But that isn't what happened. Santos decided to just walk straight into the site, something that took me really aback. It afforded them 2 deaths very early. And yeah, it was actually great that they managed to get the plant down. But of course, huge man disadvantage at that point. FaZe Clan was suspiciously nowhere to be found when STK walked into the site, which meant that they would have been in the surrounding area and ready to collapse in as soon as the plant went in. And that is what happened. I really admire the attempt from Santos. They knew that what they were doing before wasn't working. They simply had to try. And I always like it when teams do try things like that, because you can take the enemy off guard. You never know what's going to happen, but it just, in this case, wasn't enough.
1 round left before the change. FaZe going to give themselves an easy time of things and put themselves onto a match point here, or are Santos going to come at us with a little bit of a fight back? Let's see if everybody makes it to the building safely, as FaZe have been known to get that little spawn peek off. Again, the setup, very intricate, very time-wasty, with the numerous punch holes. Of course, bullet holes not being a thing. Got to opt for the full punched-out hole. But the laser gates, the castle barricades that are seemingly all being prepped, it's going to be a lot to deal with.
Yeah, the castle barricades, of course, if you routinely punch them like that, and I believe it's 11 that you have to do in order to make it just kind of 1 punch before it blows down, you're essentially prepping it so that you can burst straight through it should you need to. So that's not for the sake of bullet holes or anything like that. It's just to make the castle barricade vulnerable enough that you can walk through it without actually having to use any utility or go through the effort of time required to destroy it. And I think that in this case is mostly so that the player who's over in Cigar, if Santos come in through Piano and they start to burst in here, it'll be very easy for them to actually act on that.
Gone 6 maybe got eaten up there, as this was where we saw the brilliant ADS placement. This time no ADS in that location, just behind the stage. Instead it's going to be behind the sofa. And there's players occupying that zone. Astro currently in freezer, but has the rotation open. Still not looking to play too aggressively onto this. You do wonder if FaZe have got themselves to the point where they're like, you know what, we could really make this quite easy for ourselves. And kind of Astro's patience there shows that they're just going to try and do exactly that. SDK responds, taking down Cyber, player who hasn't been as loud as we've seen him previously. This has really been the Astro and cameraman show up until now. STK, though, has a chance to push on through into Bar. Souls is going to be holding that as a fairly long angle from New Cocktail. Hunter on the skylight. We've seen Santos try and hold plants from up here before, but you worry about if they're able to get themselves in. They've not got a lot of cover here. That's the biggest problem. They've got one stun, and that's really going to be it. So they're going to be out in the open, and, well, that's why you prep your castle barricades. Able to burst on through. Cons will take down Souls. Bit of information coming in here as well, and Hunter says, well, I've got to get in myself. I'm going to try and get the job done. He drops alongside Rise. Cameraman, he's going to get himself downed as he looks to try and hop over quite aggressively. These kills really going in Santos' favor. Astro comes in and he tries his best, but it is not going to be. Santos, they finally pick a round up here.
Nice. It was very messy, but it was great that they could do that. And I think one of the really valuable things about the way they came in with that attack is it was, well, aggressive, and it certainly took FaZe Clan off guard. And I think a lot of what went well for them, especially towards the end of that attacking round, is what they were hoping to go well for them back on the previous round when they burst into the kitchen site. And it was interesting too, because FaZe Clan were trying to react to it to make room for themselves. I mean, we saw the way that cameraman kind of dropped himself off the ledge because he knew he was going to get down and he wanted to be in safety. But FaZe Clan still had utility that was being used. There was a bulletproof camera that was up on the wall of Cocktail that was being watched. It was flashing away. And yet, because everything was happening so fast, that information is very hard to directly work off of because your enemy is being unpredictable and they're being erratic. And I think that's the problem that FaZe Clan faced there up against Santos. Unfortunately for Santos, that was their last opportunity to actually try an attack, even though they found something that kind of worked for them, I guess. That was their last chance to do that. So the sides have switched. Santos are now on the defense, which, assuming or considering their playstyle, I would assume that the defense is going to suit them a little better. Nice drone is going to alert them to Hunter's location as he walks up the brown stairs.
Well, the classic FaZe Clan drone. We see it all the time, and it's a wonder that people haven't started sort of cottoning onto it, because it's a really common one. Well, alas, it's going to provide a little bit of information for the time being. Attacking onto that top floor. Going to be quite an aggressive one from FaZe by the looks of it with the lineup that they're bringing. They're bringing the Dokkaebi, they're bringing Capital. They're heavily disruption-based operators, and they might be trying to flex this big round advantage that they have currently. It could give them a little bit of opportunity to work with, some chance to really play quite aggressively. Cyber decided didn't like the look of any of that glass inside of the skylight, and we're just cleaning up the edges there. It can give you a slightly neater line of sight, especially when you're trying to really precisely challenge players inside of the freezer. Everyone for the time being on the side of FaZe is waiting as they formulate the next part of the plan, or all get into that position ready for that execute.
I like that drone that we just saw from Souls, because that's given him all the information he needs as to where these players are through into Pixel because of the line of sight. Capital sending in his bolts and some of the smoke from the Dokkaebi as well. Now there is just fire everywhere, and Santos want to avoid the conflagration, but first kill goes on to Souls. That is quickly returned, though, as Cyber gets the next. Oh no!
Unfortunate stuff. Hunter's going to take down Rise with his C4. Cameraman, he's trying to nail that plant, and the covering fire is going to be there. Cyber eventually is taken down, but Hunter, he was in a 1 versus 3. It was always going to be difficult. We had Astro coming up these white stairs. Bullet and Cyber, what a duo there inside of that round, covering the plant and really opening up that side. That's going to put FaZe onto a match point.
So I guess because Ninjas in Pajamas didn't get a 7-1 this time, FaZe have decided, you know, we will lift the baton for you. We will take it and continue on forward. That's so kind of them. They're such a good friend.
It's very
the
gracious.
NIP. It really is. No, I mean, obviously there is a chance that that doesn't happen, but right now it looks like that's the way it's going to go. Now, interesting to me here is that Hunter has decided to bring Wamai. Was one of those things that I was thinking about in the last round is when you're going up against Capital, you should probably bring a Wamai because he is the only one of the 2 projectile stoppers who can stop Capital's projectiles. You remember when it was like, when Wamai was just introduced into the game competitively, anytime you would see a Wamai ban, people would always ban Capital as well.
Yeah. There was that stage. Capital really is one of those that falls in and out of favor as well. It's like, I can't remember the last time that Capital had like a real significant change, aside from like propagation and swapping out his, whether it's a claymore or a stun or whatever it might be. But he just seems to, he comes in and out based on defenders and based on like things like you say, like the Wamai coming in.
Yeah.
And it's someone that FaZe have regularly chosen to bring. I really like Capital because it speaks to that good old-fashioned execute where you're expecting something to happen when you see all the smokes coming. You're like, yeah, these guys are prepping. They've smoked off Freezer and they're going to drop in and try and get something happening. And that's one of the reasons why I just really like Capital and really get excited about it, because you know that teams have a specific plan. They don't just bring him on a whim.
I'm a big fan of Capital being used into small spaces like garage rafters or like a tiny little room or whatever. In that last round, he certainly wasn't used into a small space. He was used down through the skylight and basically covered the entirety of the bar. So, you know, but now they're on kitchen. Likelihood is that's not where he's going to be used. And he could be sent into freezer. It could be sent into prep. I guess we'll have to find out where cameraman intends to press that utility. Hunter and STK are holding on very firm in bakery for now, though. Souls with the Kali. I didn't even notice that a Kali had been brought.
Could be either a big impact or not so much, as kills only start to go in FaZe's favor. Can they lose a gunfight? We're not going to find the answer to that. The answer is going to be no. Cameraman, he's the one to find the final frag. They had gathered their information. There was no execute required. FaZe, they're going to take this map 7-1 here against Santos.
That was a really humiliating loss. There isn't really a better way that I can put that, and it sounds cruel, but that's what it was. You know, Santos didn't even do terribly last week. They looked like they were putting something of a fight against their opponents, but this is the first time that Santos have faced against one of those top 4 teams from the region in this stage, and they just, like, what could they do?
Well, what could Astro do? 16-1, sound about right. Unbelievable performance from him. Really stepped himself up. Chunks, get yourself back on in here. Let's have a discussion about that game. It was a much quicker one. We're almost getting back onto schedule, especially considering the games we saw last week.
Yeah, what a relief. It felt for a second like we weren't going to get a 7-1 victory, but we got it in the end, thankfully, even if NIP weren't the ones to get it. But yo, FaZe just did so much work there, and they played it really smart. They weren't about constant aggression. It was about controlled aggression. On the defensive side, they played it slow and they let the kills come to them. Whereas on the attacking side, they still played it slow. They didn't overextend. They just played it beautifully, honestly. And Ollie, I want to know, how much of an impact does that make when the team are all on the same page, when you're okay with playing it slow? What kind of confidence does that really show from a squad like FaZe?
I mean, FaZe are that team that have that capability. And, you know, they weren't at the top of the standings last stage one for no reason. They're capable of this sort of a result, especially against one of the teams that, you know, is seen to be struggling inside of the lead. And Santos, their problems ran pretty deep today, and it was more than just a mental thing. It was fundamentally, they almost like they weren't in the same server as FaZe. FaZe were just moving in that flow state. And when you've got somebody like Astro that can just pop off like that, 16 kills, 1 death, that's a very impressive score. It's 2 kills per round. We saw an 8-round game, 2 kills per round, and he's really able to put a shift in And the dangerous thing about FaZe is we've seen other players do that as well. We've seen Cyber do that. We've seen Cameraman step up and have his day. We've seen Bullet get a little bit more consistency. So it does make it a very terrifying prospect and a frightening team to go up against when that's the sort of form they're in.
Yeah, I mean, FaZe are one of those teams where pretty much everyone is able to do, you know, everyone is able to step up to that level when they need to. I gotta ask though, when we have players like Cameraman, like the rest of FaZe that are able to just pop off, how scary is that for teams like Santos? Are you able to step it up on an individual level? Or is it just a case of sometimes when you've got one or two players from FaZe that are on form, Gio, can you even stand a chance at out-fragging them?
Allow me to show you the VOD of what we just saw. I mean, right? You know, look, there will definitely be opportunities and there will be times where we see some of the lower down teams really take FaZe. And FaZe were not immune to that in the last stage either. But as for today, no. Like, FaZe looked terrifying to Santos, but not because FaZe, by their own standards, were playing incredibly, but FaZe were just playing good Siege and Santos won. Like, there is no other way that you can put it. Like, FaZe have played better Siege before, as of Santos, but they just didn't need to get that far. And yeah, I would imagine it's terrifying if you are a team like Santos and suddenly you're going up against a team like FaZe. Yeah, I reckon that's probably scary.
Yeah, when you've seen those FaZe players in the kill feed, it is a nerve-wracking one, and you could tell that from the reactions when we got to see the player cams. One man that I'm sure had Santos quaking in their boots, it was Cameraman, and he is here for an interview from FaZe Clan. Cameraman, it was about time we got a 7-1 win. I bet you're happy that you're the ones to be able to bring it.
Yeah, I'm very happy and proud of the team. We did a great job today. I've heard you guys saying that we have like better individuals players here, but I've been like playing Siege for like 5 years, and even with this roster, if we don't play like we have to, like a good Siege, as Gio said, we kind of struggle. Even against weaker teams, so that's the beauty in Siege. It's not only individuals; it's a team-wise game. So we had a great game as a team today. Astra played really well. We know that we need to work harder to be the best here in Brazil, but we're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to playing as a team, you guys are just able to do it perfectly. We saw in the first half, you were all on the same page. It felt at times like you were playing it slow, but not out of nerves, out of confidence. The fact that you were confident that we'll let the kills come to us and you'll be able to clean up. Was that the mindset going into it?
Yeah, we know that some teams don't have a good team play. They have to work really hard in this part. So against these teams, we try to fall back and let time wins. You know, like we know that they're gonna struggle, and if we just hold angles together, we probably win. So that we did that on defense, and in attack is way different. It's the opposite. We try to be aggressive and don't let them play their game. So that's what happened, in my opinion.
Cameraman, last week when we had you on an interview, you said that you want to be worried about every team you go up against. Were you worried about Santos when you came into this game?
Yes, we lost against INPZ last split, and they had complete because VNX didn't play, and we were not. It wasn't a regular game for us. We kind of underestimate them, and we lost. So I made a promise, and every team I'm playing against since that day, I'm working hard as I'm working for Liquid or NIP or any other team. So we work really hard. We know we came here to win.
Cameraman, just touching back onto a point that you made previously about on the defenses and really trying to just hold angles. We saw you play so many castles, so many Arunis with the laser gates. Is all that just in an attempt to give problems that Santos needed to solve and just to burn a lot of time?
Yeah, yeah. Siege is getting more dynamic this meta, let's say. But we know that even with Jaeger ADS is being nerfed, we know that it's a struggle to break castles, the Runis, and everything else. We've seen teams like Furia, they played a lot the combo Wamai, Aruni, and Jaeger. So we know the struggle that is to play against that. And yeah, you're right. We did this on purpose.
I gotta ask, you spoke a minute ago about how on the attacking side you were playing a bit more aggressive. How do you guys prepare for that? Because it felt like you would play it slow and then you just go in full speed and just kind of tear Santos apart. As a team, how do you prepare for that? How do you get the coordination? Is it just a case of playing together a lot and getting that chemistry down? Or is there anything that, people watching the stream could maybe take into their more casual games and implement into their game plan?
When I used to play in FaZe a long time ago, we had a play style that is more like Liquid. It's drone, stop, hold flanks, drone more, and time gets hard in these situations if anything goes wrong. So when I got into MIBR, like since day one, and they and kind of when I turned IGL, I try to make tactics that are that kind of don't need these like flash nade. We just run in front of the shield because we have like 5 people at the same time in different angles, so this guy that is behind the shield is not gonna kill everybody. So we don't need to take off the shield in some situations. Of course, some situations we need, but we try to avoid this as much as we can.
I am very curious. In Playday 2, you guys had a bit of a disappointing scoreline against Team Liquid. What did you focus on this week, particularly, to kind of come back from that?
Like since the 6th Invitational, we noticed that on the first stage of the BR6, we were doing really good, but our play style was getting a little, how can I say, people knew what we would do. And in 6th Invitational, what happened? Brazilian teams beat us because they already knew how is our play style, and we didn't change that now. So we try to not show everything now. And against Liquid, the problem is that we had a really strong Oregon back then, and we didn't change anything. We played like 6 Invitational, and they read us really well and knew everything was gonna happen, and that's probably the reason of the loss. So we try to change maps now and try not to be so how can I say,
Predictable?
predictable. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely felt like you were able to adapt. You weren't all about, the same strategy every time. You definitely switched things up, and I think that was super impressive. Cameraman, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure watching you guys play.
Thank you.